How are you doing, Balakhilya?
Well, Ruben, I'm fine. Thank you very much. It's New Year, so we're looking
Yeah.
forward to continuing on.
Where are you at? I see the sun is shining behind you.
Oh, yes, I'm in actually Central Asia, Kazakhstan.
Yeah.
Many people never even heard of this country, but it's quite a nice country.
I've heard a lot about the mountains in Kazakhstan.
Yeah, there's amazing mountains here. They're called the Tingshing Mountains, and they're actually the beginning of the Himalayan chains. So they're big mountains. There's some quite significant peaks here.
I think you told me that you were hiking like 40 kilometers in one day.
Yeah, we have done a 40-kilometer day. Yeah, and multiple hour hikes. I think that day we were out 15 hours. Started in the dark and ended in the dark. There was a lot going on in between.
How old are you?
77.
Yeah. I, surprised that the young guys kept up.
No, they did well. The young guys are dragging me along. Yeah.
Yeah. I you would be dragging me along. You
Yeah, it's fun. And, it's a good chance to get out in nature and experience the energy, the mode of goodness and the beauty. And also, usually on our hikes, we stop and, of course, we have breakfast and lunch out there, but we also have meditation sessions like kirtan, which is congregational chanting of the mantra. We carry a little wooden frog. In fact, we might have that frog somewhere. I
show
can
us.
show you our instrument.
Wooden frog. I
This,
think I've.
this, this is our instrument.
Oh wow! Can you play it?
And so, this is our rhythm section. And so, yeah, we always have this along and we just have our little chanting sessions. And yeah, it's quite nice.
Why is nature particularly good for? I know you're hiking a lot. What's nature for you? Why is it, you know?
Well, I'm always speaking from the platform of Bhakti Yoga and the Vedic teachings. So in that knowledge, we learned that in the material world, there's three modes of material nature, it's called, that basically comprise the material creation. And each individual mode exerts a certain influence on us. And according to that influence, and it affects our psyche, it's a psychological influence. So according to that influence, we act a certain way, we think a certain way, we have certain desires. It's like, somebody puts a spell on you, and because of the spell, you do certain things. And it's like you think you're doing it, but really it's the influence of the spell that's doing it.
It sounds
So the
spook.
modes of nature are, yeah, and the modes of nature are these three influences. So the mode of goodness obviously is a good spell, a good mode. And so it's influencing us to be more simple in life, to be more peaceful, to not only think about physical and mental health, but also to implement that with diet and exercise, and et cetera, et cetera. And it's also much more likely that a person in the mode of goodness will have some spiritual aspirations or spiritual questions,
Yeah.
spiritual interests, we could say. So anyway, nature is in the mode of goodness. So when you go into nature, automatically you come under that influence. And that's why when people go into nature, they feel more calm, more peaceful. It's easier for them to kind of just leave all the troubles behind. There's a famous snowboarder, one of the best adventure snowboarders on the planet, Jeremy Jones. And he describes it like when he goes into nature on his excursions, it's like going through a portal. And when he goes through that portal, he enters a whole nother world.
Mm.
And he leaves all that. He's also, got a business producing snowboards and equipment, and he's very active in Protect Our Winters, which is an environmental activity. And anyway, he says he leaves all that behind. The computers, the phones, the business, the problems, et cetera, et cetera. And now he's a whole nother person. So that's because he's entered the mode of goodness and he's able to leave it behind.
Mm-hmm.
Some people take it with them. They don't want to leave it behind, or they're too attached to it. So you just let it go, and then you experience all the benefits of nature and the harmony that exists in nature automatically. When you see wild animals in nature, they're harmonizing with their environment, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're eating what they're supposed to eat, because the animals that eat the vegetation or whatever is available in that area are designed to eat that, because that's why they're there. It's all synchronized. It's all in perfect harmony. So you become more harmonious with nature, with each other. Your hiking companions or skiing companions or whatever your sport in nature is. It's a special bond that, it's different than being in a business with somebody, or being in a city, or being at a party with somebody, or whatever. It's a different bond,
And for you, this has been, and you've experienced this through surfing.
I experienced it in surfing. Yeah, actually, my whole life. I was born on a farm, raised on a farm in the southeast United States, North Carolina. And our farm was, farms are basically nature. And then there was forest all around, and a very nice stream ran through the farm. And my mother was very into this whole concept. Not knowingly, she couldn't explain what I just explained to you. She just felt it. She knew it.
Yeah.
And so when we grew up, our days were often spent with her in the forest, or down by the creek, playing in the creek, or taking walks in the woods. We called them woods, not forest.
Huh.
And, looking at the beauty, she would say, "Oh, look how beautiful this flower is," or "Look how beautiful, this stream is." So anyway, that kind of, instilled that in me, appreciation for the outdoors, for nature. And so, it just carried with me until the present day. And, so when I was in university, I started surfing. I was attracted to the ocean because I was working at the ocean, the sea, in the summers to, support my education. And so anyway, the sea was the nature there. Like if you're by the sea, that's the nature. When you're in the mountains, that's the nature. And so I was scuba diving, and then I started surfing, and the whole thing was like, again, just harmony with the energy, the elements, the whole natural flow, so to speak. And so I went to Hawaii and spent many years in Hawaii, again, surfing and, just living in a situation on an outer island where I was, living in a van or living in a rent-free house in the middle of a, valley. And so it's just had its influence on me the whole time. And then I started,
A rent-free house?
Yeah, we kind of lucked into it. I had a friend, I'd met him over there, and he was kind of on the same page, so to speak, a surfer. When I met him, we just clicked, and then we didn't see each other hardly except, in passing for a couple of years. And during that time, we both kind of went the same path. He became a vegetarian, I became a vegetarian, not together, just separately. So when I met him a couple of years later, we kind of evolved together in our interest in yoga and spiritual life and reading scriptures and, thinking about higher truths. And it was very unique that here we were, we'd both just arrived in Hawaii, coming from California. I was from the East Coast, completely different culture, but at the same time, kind of on the same page again. And that's the way it was. I've always kind of moved through relationships in this way, and he and I are still, very, very close. And so we entered into our spiritual life together, so to speak, and meditating and spending time by waterfalls and, trying to see things you can't see with the material eyes, feel things you can't feel with your hands, and just kind of in awe and wonder at the whole thing, a whole nother evolution taking place inside. It was exciting. It was fresh. It was new. It was like, wow, kind of thing. And so we met our spiritual master together, and, both as individuals, decided, this is who I want to guide me in my spiritual life. And so we've just kind of gone like that in our life journey. And of course, along the way, you meet other like-minded people, and so it's natural for us to evolve. I mean, that's the mankind's way, isn't it, to evolve? But unfortunately, most people under the mode of passion, which is another one of the modes, which is the, I got to achieve, I got to compete, I got to be number one, I got to, enjoy a lot of sensual stimulation, et cetera, et cetera. So most people under the mode of passion, their idea of evolving is evolving materially. More material achievements, getting more things, getting more material recognition, getting more degrees, proving myself to be, able to do, superhuman things or whatever it is. That's a whole different influence. It's a whole different consciousness evolves out of that. It's very agitating, very disturbing. No matter how much you achieve, it's not enough. You're never satisfied. You're the best, but you want to be even better than the best. And you're always running from your competition who wants to overtake you and prove that they're superior to you and whatever. It's a very, non-peaceful world.
Well, that's the whole society today, isn't it? From when you're born. I mean,
just drive yourself into the ground. Physically, mentally, people are just overloaded. They're just blowing up mentally. That's why there's so much depression and anxiety and, even to the extreme limits of suicide. And all of that's increasing. And they combine that with the third influence, which is the mode of ignorance. And that's where you're just totally in the dark. It's symbolized by the highest pleasure is sleep. You just want to void out kind of thing. Sleep way more than you need to. It also coincides with a lot of intoxication, just kind of dulling out, burying yourself under the cloud of ignorance.
Well, why would you want to do that?
Because there's no real happiness in this mode of passion, vicious cycle, and you need some relief. I mean, it gets too much no matter what. You need some relief. You need a vacation, so to speak, but not just 2 days off, to go and drink more or party more or whatever. You really need some relief, but they don't know that real relief is in the mode of goodness and pure goodness, which is spiritual relief. So, intoxication provides that. Sleep provides that. It's an escape. You know, there used to be, it probably still is. I haven't been in L.A. in a long time, although I lived there for a while. But there was a chain of movie theaters, and when you went to any one of these theaters, there was a thing on the screen in the very beginning: escape to the movies. And that's the idea: escape. People are trying to escape from reality. So when you take a lot of intoxication, now you don't even have to take that much. It actually is an escape to another reality. That's why sci-fi movies and all these kinds of things, they just take you to another reality. Psychedelic drugs that put you under an hallucinogenic influence. You're escaping your everyday humdrum, mundane, non-successful, producing no happiness life. And so that becomes people's shelter, And it's a vicious cycle. So mode of passion drives you to do more, but it's overload. It never makes you happy. So your antidote for that is mode of ignorance, intoxication, darkness, just dull things. But also that's where the evil comes in. So under that mode of ignorance, you also have the stimulating influence of the mode of passion, which drives you but down, not up, but down to darker and darker activities, like just things if you're in any kind of consciousness above, a higher state of thinking, say, you're in this influence of goodness, at least to a moment, just a little degree. You can see that this lower lifestyle, which is so now lauded as wonderful, is just so abominable. It's so unattractive. It's not for humans. It's just for lower species of life, And so that's what we've almost degraded into now. And it's almost like there's no bottom to it. It's like you fall in a dark well and you keep going down and down. And every time you go down, there's another level of depravity and weirdness, but there's no bottom, and it's just like an endless pit. But people see this as again progress. When you're in that consciousness, you think you're really getting somewhere, and you are, but you're getting to a place of ever increasing misery, and suffering and future, just lifestyles and lives and results of these activities that you don't want. There is no bright future here.
But did you know? Seems like you're just surfing and enjoying life. Did you ever have stress and difficulties yourself?
No, I didn't. I never had that problem, so to speak. I don't know, somehow I just knew that there was no good there. There was nothing that I wanted there. There was no solutions there. And I was already experiencing, higher things. I played around with some of these, mind expanding things, but not to go down, but to go up, to try to find a brighter light, a more wonderful, brighter existence where there's things that are higher than anything I'd experienced so far. It was like a Space Odyssey, so to speak. It's funny, back in that time, there was that movie, maybe you're too young to even remember, the Space Odyssey, and
I think I've heard about it, yeah.
And it was it was a real exciting time when people were looking for to go up. It's like not trying to go to the moon, but to go to higher levels of consciousness, and so the mode of ignorance kinds of things, weren't attractive. Like they took you down. That was a downer. That was actually what it was described. Oh, that's a downer. It puts a dark, dampening cloud on things. You know, don't go there. And if you had friends that were still there or going there, are you still in that space, man? You still doing that? Like, don't you know there's something better? And
But
so,
what? No,
hmm?
what is that better? When I hear what you're saying, I would say just go into the forest and live and forget everything. Did you ever did you ever do that yourself? You know.
I didn't actually go live in the forest away from anybody because I was, number one, too attracted to surfing. And so I didn't want to leave that
The ocean.
behind, that ocean, and that's another whole level of experience that only a surfer knows. There's a surf company, Billabong, and they say, only a surfer knows the feeling. And it's true. I mean, if you never surfed, you don't know that feeling. And that feeling is very captivating. We used to talk about it, it's like, okay, if you had the choice of this, which would be in a very attractive material situation with this beautiful woman or whatever, or you could spend a day here or a day in perfect waves, which would you choose? And we always chose the waves. you know, it was more attractive. It was like, yeah, I wouldn't give up the waves for that. Although most people would kill for that. I mean, your imagination, you can let it go where you want. But anyway, so that was one thing, and I never wanted to be just alone and away from everybody. I liked being around people. I was always a social person to a degree, but I wanted to be around the people I wanted to be around. I didn't want to be around people just to be around people, but people, like I said, my friend, that we started our journey together and so on. They were on the same page. And that's the nature of humans. You see, we're all spirit souls. We're not our material bodies. We're the person in the body, and the body is just our temporary residence, our vehicle. And so we have all these natural tendencies which are coming from our true self, the spirit soul. But we filter them through our material consciousness and, under the influence of these modes of nature and so on. So it comes out, in whatever way it does. But by nature, the soul is gregarious. That means likes to be with other souls. We're not meant to be alone. And then you can look in the animal kingdom and you'll see there are some species that are basically loners, but even they have their times together. Like the lion is basically a loner, but there's times when the lions come and they have a pride and they travel together, et cetera, et cetera. The lone wolf, so to speak, but they travel as packs. And if you look, you'll find this is true. One time I was driving through Colorado, beautiful state. I lived there. And I was going through an area where there was nothing but just unlimited square kilometers of open prairie and so on. And there's, horses or cattle that are there, but no houses, no humans there. And the road was, of course, going through this area. And here these two horses were with probably thousands of hectares of land around them. And they were together, and one had his head over the other one's neck, and the other one's had his head over the other one's neck. They were just together, so, because it's the nature of the soul, And when we don't have these proper relationships, starting with the proper relationship with the Supreme Lord and expanding out to relationships with other spirit souls, be they in human bodies or dog bodies or whatever, then we feel very lonely, And that's one of the problems that people are experiencing now is loneliness. And you can be so lonely in the middle of a crowd because there's nobody in that crowd of hundreds of people, perhaps, that actually you have that inner connection with. You just don't. They're there, but they're not there for you. Your heart is longing for that relationship which is intimate, which is close, which is fulfilling, and so on. And that's, again, the nature of the soul.
I was gonna add Balakhilya. I've been hiking a lot as well. Going on. This was in February, probably 3 years ago. Really, really cold and dark up in the north, Sweden. As we walked out of the car at the parking lot, started sort of preparing for our hike, it felt like someone had taken a big knife and just stuck it right through my heart. It was, for me, the state of no anxiety, the state of complete freedom, being out there in the middle of nowhere, alone, just me. But at the same time, I felt so lonely and so, I just, like I had no place. That was the peak in life, like being alone in nature. But at the same time, I felt really lonely, just because I was longing for my, a part of it was, maybe I was longing for my friends, but I felt that there was something much, much deeper.
Yeah, it is. That's true. And you're lucky you experience that, because it awakens you to a reality that we can never be non-lonely until we have that ever present, but at the same time ever missing relationship with the Supreme Lord. That's the relationship we're missing, you see. So the Lord is in our heart. He's that close. He's in our heart. But when we don't know that, when we don't recognize that, when it's like, somebody's in the room, but I don't know they're in the room kind of thing, then that relationship is not active, and I'm not getting the benefit of that. And so, as far as I know, I'm alone, but really I'm not alone. And when I actually cultivate that relationship, and that's the process of Bhakti Yoga, which is the yoga process that I follow, that I practice, that I teach under the guidance of my spiritual master, Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsa. I have learned that is what the solution to this is. And until you know that and then begin to experience that, it's like a mystery. I got what I want, but I don't have what I want. And I don't know what's wrong here. Like, I got the wife, I got the kids, I got the friends, and they love me and I love them, et cetera, but I'm still lonely. What is it? What's wrong here? Something's missing, and I don't know what it is, because according to my material calculations, I have the solution, but it's not working. And that's because I don't have that relationship with the Supreme Lord.
How do you develop the courage to actually see that? How do you actually accept that reality? Because I think that's a tough one for the Norwegians, at least, to
So, again, there are certain cultures that are, and I can't really explain exactly why, but they're more against this idea than other cultures. Some cultures just by nature, like, they're not as determined to be independent, and they're not as determined to deny anything beyond themselves. You see, because then that, in the eyes of some people, makes them seem weak. Okay, if I need to depend on a higher personality, then that means I'm weak. I'm not self-sufficient. I'm not actually exhibiting inner strength. And some cultures promote that more than others, you know. And especially if a country is economically well off, so the individuals are quite well off financially, and the creature comforts, so to speak, that they need to satisfy their desires for material comfort and happiness and whatever, are more reluctant to admit their frailty, admit their weakness, because we are weak, we are frail. We're not the supreme, we're not the controllers. You see, that's the reality. Who can say they're the controller? We can't even control our bowels. We can't even control, COVID-19. we can't control, death. If I was a controller and I didn't want to die, I wouldn't die, But we do die, and we can't control it. All the money, all the best doctors, all the fame, all the best wishes from friends and family and relatives and so on can't keep me from dying. I am not the controller. There is something higher than me. And everybody should admit that. And if we admit that, we might begin to question, well, what is that? So if I know what it is, then I can control it. What's higher than me? If I know what that is, I'll be able to control it. You see, this is nonsense, and it doesn't produce any good results. Look at the results of countries that are anti-God and anti-religion and anti-spiritual truth and so on. And the citizens are not happy. They are not happy, and they don't have any solution to the non-happiness. Whereas for myself, who actually, due to, my activities in my past lives, obviously so. When I came into this life in a human body, from the time I remember, number one, I was born in a family that recognized God as the number one person. I was born in a Christian family, and my father especially was so convinced that it is a supreme person, that Jesus was the Son of the supreme person, and he came to deliver a message of truth that would actually save us from, the Christian's idea is heaven and hell, and it would make it so we would have a better life. And so I was, born into that family, but I never doubted it. I never questioned it. I just knew it was true. That was me. That's not everybody, but that was me. You see, so I just carried it on and expanded on it and tried to receive more information about it. So if I can accept there is a supreme person or supreme truth, then, there's a good chance that I might want to know more about that supreme person. I want to know more of this supreme truth. I want to know how this can affect my life. How can I be benefited from this? A quest for knowledge, a quest for like curiosity kind of thing. It may start, I might start as being an inquisitive seeker, but gradually I began to experience things and intuitively know things from within my heart, because the Supreme Lord in my heart is allowing me to know that it's not just inquisitive truth to satisfy my curiosity. This is actually real, and I want to be more and more a part of this reality. I want this to be my true reality, and I began to see the superficial nature of this world. And I start realizing this is not true reality. This is the present moment reality. But for me, the spirit soul, there's no value here. There's no future here, So anyway, back to your question, the countries that don't, promote this at all, but the opposite. They deny God and put forth strongly their independence and so on. They have a very unfortunate, situation. It's very, very unfulfilling, and there's no bright future.
But I think a big part of it is the idea of that supreme person or God that is presented. And I wasn't born in a Christian family, but we used to go to the church every now and then. I never really followed anything, but as you turn 15, at least in Scandinavia, you go through this, you call it confirmation. It's like a Christian camp. You are able to do like a fake camp like I did. And like a social thing, really. But being there, I felt deeply in my heart the presence of something more, a taste there, I felt the love, and that sounds maybe, but that's so I followed that path of Christianity for a good while, and I thought that was, the image of God sort of presented to me by people. And I went to New Zealand for an exchange period, and a Christian surf camp. I remember, you were surfing in the days and talking about Jesus in the evenings, and I remember I asked one of the guys about, because this idea of hell really bothered me, that if I don't believe, I will be sent to hell. And to me, that didn't ring with the unconditional nature of such a person's love if there was to be a supreme person. So I just away from that completely and realized that's the God that's presented. So the truth must be that there is no God. And then the consequence of that has to be I am God and everyone is God. And that's the path I followed.
But if people don't accept God, then they're missing the best thing. They're missing the greatest thing, and they're voluntarily choosing to never be happy and to never be satisfied, and to be always under the influence of the modes of nature in the material world, struggling to reach that which is the natural condition of the soul, to be happy. They're struggling to reach it, but they never can, because it's not possible, So it's sad, when people make that choice and stand on it quite firmly many times, And the idea that we're all God, which I also, followed for a period of time, because the yoga philosophy has two divisions. One is the impersonalist division, where you, just like you said, are taught and then led to believe and practice meditation techniques and so on to come to ultimately realize that you are God, that you are number one. And the other division is where there is a personal supreme being, and that you are part and parcel of, we'll do, just to make it simple, a child of the supreme person, supreme being. So, but both of those divisions of yoga give very advanced information about the soul, and that we're not the body, and, higher levels of the material world, higher levels, of consciousness. And then beyond the material dimension, there's an actual spiritual world, a spiritual realm. And there was nothing in there about hell and the devil and all those things. And it opened up things that I had often questioned in my, like you say, following the Christian teachings, that there was some questions that weren't answerable, just as you referred to. And so I followed this impersonal teaching, and the meditations do, bring about some pretty profound experiences. And so But all the while, in the back of all this, I knew I'm not God. And I thought, well, the reason I feel like this is because I've just not advanced enough. But when I actually advance more, then I'll fully realize that I am God, you know. So through Kundalini yoga and, you know, the different impersonalist techniques, different breathing techniques and so on, you start feeling more godlike, so to speak, you know. But still behind all that, I knew I'm not God. I mean, I just knew that. And I knew I could never become God. So when I met, you know, Siddhasarupananda Paramahamsa, my spiritual master, and he told me very directly, you're not God. And he had scriptural proof to support everything he said. I went, wow, I'm glad I got out of that one. I'm glad I got out of that, you know, because it was starting to become a burden. Like, I'm trying to be something I know I'm not, and so on. So it was a great relief for me to know you're not God, you're the servant of God, you're the child of God, and you can be happy in serving God. You know, when God is the focus of your life, you know, and you're acting on in that capacity, then you'll be happy, you know. And just in mundane situations, we experience that to a degree. It's a perverted reflection, but it's still a profound experience. Let's say you're a single guy and you're a lonely guy, you know, you're not really fulfilled. You're having a good time, so to speak, with your mates and, you know, temporary affairs and so on, but you're not really happy. And then you meet this person who's the one you've been looking for. I mean, she's got, you know, all the credentials that you've, you know, put on the list. And, you know, all of a sudden, she becomes the center. And you start focusing your attention and your energies and your desire to please and so on this person. And it's so much better. You know, it's more life-giving, you know, and it touches you much deeper than all this superficial stuff. And so it gives you a reason to get up in the morning. Oh, I'm going to get up and we're going to see each other and we're going to do fun things together and it's going to be a fantastic day. Even though the things we do aren't fantastic, because we're doing it together, it's fantastic, you know. So that's just a perverted reflection of how it is when that central personality is the supreme personality, you know. And this takes life to another whole dimension, you know. And so that's bhakti yoga. That's what we're doing, and that's what we're trying to encourage other people to at least look at least entertain the idea of, you know. And you experienced the same thing. I mean, I know how you came around and you were, you know, a little skeptical of
Long
the
hair.
whole thing, and you know,
Hair to here and
yeah, hair to here, and you know, and everything was cool and nothing was wrong, and you know, everybody's on their own trip and that's perfect and for them and whatever. But when you heard more and more of the philosophy, you know, it you know, kind of changed your viewpoint, didn't it?
yeah.
You know,
And
and then the meditation that we do, the chanting. I mean, I know you happen to luck out and be in a situation where you just by default were in the middle of a lot of that. And that chanting is the magic. It's the purifying agent, and it, you know, it makes it so what might take, you know, years or lifetimes to accomplish, when chanting's a part of the whole process, it fast forwards everything, you know, unlimited times. And
yeah.
quickly, you know, you start developing a whole nother consciousness.
So if I mean you've been doing this life. I mean you've been I think over 45 years now, and you know we often refer to you as we don't really know how to call it. We often refer to you as yoga master Balakhilya, but how would you see yourself? Are you a yoga master or?
Absolutely not. I am not a yoga master. In fact, every time you or others may say this, I kind of laugh. I laugh, and again I say, "Oh man," kind of like.
To
But
show off
I
standing on
accept
your
it
head
because in the world we live in today, people are attracted by that word master. Oh, here's some master. Let me go see what this master has to say. Well, all I have to say is what I learned from my Guru Dev, you see, who learned it from his Guru Dev, and so on and so on. And no master feels like a master. They're always the student, right up to the Supreme Lord. There's only one spiritual master, and that's the Supreme Person himself. And everyone else is the servant, see. And so that's how I understand I am. I'm just, a servant of my master trying to pass on what he has so kindly given to me, And that doesn't make me a master. That just makes me, a messenger, so to speak. I'm just passing it on. But I know the message is pure, coming through my master. He's a pure medium, so I know the message is pure. And if I can retain the purity by not getting in the way and changing it and interfere with it and so on, then it will purify those who may hear it and receive it. And that's all I'll ever be. I don't ever want, nor I would ever can be in a different position than that.
What's needed for you to come to that platform? What's the secret?
Just do it. There's a process. There's a technique. There's guidelines. There's instructions. There's a formula, and you just apply it to your life every day. Every day you get up, and that's what you do. And tomorrow you do the same thing. And you're the eternal student. You study the teachings. You study the scriptures. I listen to, my spiritual master speak. Who is speaking from the scriptures and from his spiritual master's guidance and instructions and knowledge and so on. And you just receive the truth. And maybe you've heard the same thing unlimited times, but it's still fresh and you still receive it. It's not like you hear something new every day, but it is true that you may realize something of that truth on a more deeper level every day. That's the thing. You could hear the same sentence again and again and again, but as we become more and more purified of the coverings over us and the illusions and, the false agendas and so on, we may understand the meaning of that sentence more and more, deeper and deeper knowledge and so on. So, that's going on. The beauty of spiritual life and spiritual love and spiritual truth is there's no end to it. It doesn't end. It's not like finite. You just get to a point and that's all. No, it's infinite. There is no end. There is no limit. And that's wonderful.
Well, why people do fail and why give up? I mean, it sounds like people would, if you describe the processes that you do in your day, maybe people would feel like that's unattainable, and if you are on the process already, maybe very hard and maintain this.
Well, there's a lot of reasons people fail, but one is they don't follow the process with any real sincerity. They're not trying to focus with attention. So the person may not be applying the technique with sincerity or focusing with attention, like when we chant on the japa beads, these meditation beads. The Maha Mantra is the mantra we use. You see, if you don't do it with attention, you're just doing mechanically, just, you're spaced out, but you're just getting it done. It's not exactly the same, you see. And because you're not getting the fruit, because you're not getting, the exhilaration or the upliftment or the attraction. That's actually the best way. So anyway, you're not experiencing that attraction. It becomes a burden, and people, if they do it, they're doing it reluctantly. Any little obstacle will prevent them from doing it. They have an excuse. Oh, I don't have time. I'm too tired. Whatever. Also, they may become a little lax in their association and start associating with people who have no interest in spiritual life and in these truths. And they, of course, when we're with people, we're influenced by them, and also often we want them to think we're okay. So we kind of, move more into their world to be accepted, and usually their world is where we came from, and so we're already, kind of, in that dimension from past experiences, and we kind of fall back into many things that we used to do that are obstacles on the spiritual path for sure. Or we make offenses, we become critical of other people, especially devotees, especially the spiritual master. We make offenses against them, and this is like spiritual suicide. This really, damages my spiritual life completely. Then my attraction to the material world increases. My attraction to spiritual life and activities and goals decreases. And so I would say offenses are the most dangerous cause, the number one and most dangerous. And then the rest of it that I mentioned, they bring us down. They bring us down. So we got to be serious. I mean, spiritual life is not for the lazy, and it's not for the nonsense guy. It's the most serious lifestyle, and if we're not serious, then we won't be successful. But close association with serious people, that is very, very important. Yeah. And like I said, you were fortunate. You had that association in the beginning, and have maintained it, and so therefore it kind of keeps us honest.
What's something that people seem to misunderstand about you?
What they misunderstand about me? I don't know, because I don't really deal with a lot of people who misunderstand me, truthfully speaking. And I speak a lot to the general public, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that have no idea what I'm doing, but I don't hear that, my family, fortunately enough, I'd say they've been more receptive to what I do than, maybe they don't understand it exactly, but they know that I'm totally into it, and they've supported me with their non-criticism, or they're okay with it,
Who are your siblings? Who is your family?
I was speaking about, my sister. She's already left her body now, and that kind of family. My immediate family is, I have a daughter that's 41. She was born into this philosophy. So from the very beginning. She heard this and so has been, applying it in her life to greater and lesser degree. She's not, totally doing what I'm doing, but she's got no doubt that it's absolute truth. She's never questioned any of the teachings. She's never, questioned, the validity and the purity of our spiritual master, and et cetera, et cetera. So, that's always been, nice. And then, my wife, she's in Australia now, but was already, fully involved with this teaching when we met. And she has, great faith in the whole process and the Supreme Lord and our spiritual master and, our mentor and so on. And so, from that angle, it's been no problem at all,
Mm.
Yeah. So.
What if you could, or if I could, if I could remove all barriers, what projects would you do? Would you engage? If all constraint barriers were removed, what would you like to?
I just like to pass this knowledge to as many people as possible, through whatever medium is available, like we're now with the COVID, quarantines and lockdowns and travel restrictions and so on. We've gone completely online. And, of course, online, you can meet a lot of people. There's a lot of other people online too. And so in one way, it's been a blessing. We can actually meet people all over the world at one time, whereas before, up until February, I was traveling, every week to 2 weeks, I was traveling to another country, another destination, giving public lectures and reaching, a lot of people, but not as many people as we can reach on the internet, and of course you miss the personal contact, which is also very valuable, but we're just dealing with what we have. And so that's the project. And I'm not, the guy who has the let's say the ability or vision or whatever to know how to spread it. I can present it, but other people are much better distributing it, and so, and wonderfully enough, they're doing this, they're helping me in this way. And, I'm just helping my spiritual master, and I'm just spreading his message. And that's how we do it.
Can you tell us about someone who has applied this, someone whose heart has been touched by this?
Many, many, many people I can tell you about. I've seen people come, the greatest skeptics, the greatest agnostics, maybe confirmed atheists or whatever, really had no interest in spiritual life, but somehow they liked the chanting, for instance, and so they came, and it was, their attraction to the music and kind of the party atmosphere that attracted them. I remember 1974, I went to a small, it's not so small now, town in Colorado near Denver, and started giving classes. And a friend of mine that I had known in Hawaii who was chanting was with this girl, and she started coming to the programs because he did, and we were having them at his house, which also was her house. So automatically she's kind of stuck in this middle of this, and so she would stick around and she's chanting, and she liked the chanting. She liked the chanting and the dancing and so on. But of course, during the programs, there would be a presentation of the philosophy, and she didn't like that. she traveled the world. This was back in, the time when a lot of people, the hippie trail, where people were traveling all over, especially through Europe and Asia and so on, backpacking and, living the good life, so to speak. Many people traveled to India, etc. And she'd done that. So she'd been in that dimension. And of course, free thinker, everything's cool, very, 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 liberal and so on. So, but she stayed around and chanted because she liked that. And she wouldn't really listen to the philosophy, or if she did, she wouldn't agree with it. So one day she told me, I really like the chanting, but I will never accept this philosophy. I said, okay, no problem, just chant. So she continued to chant, no pressure on her to accept anything. And then gradually she started hearing what she was hearing. She started realizing, because the chanting was gradually purifying her more and more. And then she went on to become very active, and she got completely convinced and became a disciple of my spiritual master, and then became, she took her traveling tendencies and started traveling and speaking. She went to Fiji, I remember, and was going village to village in Fiji and get the whole village to come. Here's a white girl in the middle of, the Fijians, and everybody wanted to come out and have a look. And they just all began to chant, and she was just, so enlivened by this, and she was on a mission to help our spiritual master. And so it went from, I will never accept this philosophy, to fully presenting this philosophy with absolute faith and conviction and the potency of that connection with our spiritual master. And she was changing the lives of other people, And it wasn't like a struggle. It was just like a natural evolution, And that's how we want it to be. We want it to be a natural evolution, This is not a conversion philosophy where we convert people. This is a natural evolution of the soul from coming out from under the depths of illusion and despair and ignorance, into the light of knowledge and spiritual truth. And this is like the sun rising, and the clouds are dissipated. So that's real. I mean, that's real. That is not just, I went to a meeting and they convinced me, and then next week I'm totally back to where I was before.
Where spiritual master come into play? How did you meet your spiritual master, and why is that important?
The Supreme Lord, he has a system. He's the controller. And he has a system who he allows into his inner sanctum, so to speak, in his inner circle, And he also disseminates this knowledge through his representatives and through the Vedic scriptures. So the system is that when I have a desire in my heart, and remember, the Lord's in our heart, he's omniscient, he's all-knowing. When I have a desire in my heart to know more truth, really I want to know, not, just kind of, I want to know. The Lord, he knows that. He knows everything I want, good or bad, up or down. And so when I really want to know, he arranges my life in such a way that I meet his representative. And then, again, according to my real desire and sincerity, he either gives me the vision to see this is my representative, or he does not give me the vision to see that. See, it's all according to his will. And his will is according to my will. What do I really want? And so, anyway, as I say, I was personally on this impersonalist path, but I knew in my heart I wasn't God and that there was a supreme person. And so one time when I was on Kauai, I was in this island, a remote island in Hawaii. That's when I had to rent free house and surfed every day, whatever. Living the life. And I saw a poster that he would be speaking at one of the local schools. And so I went to this meeting and heard him speak. There's a lot of details I'm leaving out, but I heard him speak, and I don't remember what he said, but I remember the power, the potency of who said it and the message. And so, I talked to him afterward, and he invited me to come to where he was staying. He just arrived on the island a few days before. And I went to his evening classes for 5 days in a row, every night. And he was saying things, I thought I knew everything. I'd read a bunch of scripture and yoga books and masters saying what they said in their books. And I thought I knew a lot. And he was, telling me things I didn't know. And I was very surprised that there was so much I didn't know, because I thought I knew everything. So anyway, where was I?
You thought you knew everything.
So I went to hear him speak 5 nights in a row, and then, I understood around the 3rd night or 4th night that this is who I know is qualified to be my spiritual guide. I just knew that. It's not like I had to, sort anything out. It was just like, I know. And so I stayed close. I didn't go anywhere. And he needed a place to stay. So we invited him to come stay where we were staying, in our free house in the middle of the forest. And he came there, and he just, so wonderfully took over our lives. And he established a yoga ashram there, which went on for years. And many, many people came and stayed and became followers of his and these teachings. And, it's until the day, there's many people still from that era, that's where they started, at that little place in the forest in Kauai. And so it's according to the arrangement, by the Supreme Lord. He says, if you want to know me, you must know my devotee. If you want to serve me, you must serve my devotee. That's his system. I can't change that. He said, don't come to me directly, come to me through my devotee. So Lord Jesus Christ, for instance, he was God's devotee. He was the representative of the Supreme Lord at that place on the planet at that time for those people. And that's why he told these people, none one cometh unto the Lord but by me. See, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No one cometh unto the Lord but by me. He was their representative, and he was the one that they had to go through to come to his Father. You see, it's not like he was the only one forever and ever and ever, but for those people at that time, at that place, he was the representative. And so that's how it is in true spiritual life. And if you don't have a spiritual master, see, then you can't really be successful. It's the system. I can't change that. There's a supreme divine program set up, and all I can do is comply with that. And the more readily and fully and with full humility accept and follow that teaching, the more successful I'll be.
What's what's motivating you to keep doing that, to keep doing what you're doing? You're going through. I mean, yeah, I think that you barely sleep. It seems like you're very, very active. Your days are filled with trying to reach out. What's the driving force?
Because that's where the pleasure is. That's where the happiness is. It's where the fulfillment is. Living for yourself is not fulfilling. The more we live for ourselves, the more we suffer, the less happy we are. See, but when you're living for another person, and especially the supreme person, pleasing him and his devotees, you see, his representatives, that's where your life is, and you're just living your life. That's all you're doing. You're not doing anything special. You're just living your life. That's what your life is. And it might look to other people like, oh, that's so special. It's not special. It's just you're living your life. And that's what you want to do. And if someone somehow took that away, that would be when you lose your life. That would be loss of life. See, and that continues through the death of the body. It doesn't stop when the body dies. The bodies get old, they die. But you continue on. Your spirit soul, your consciousness is what it is, and you'll continue. You'll be given those opportunities to continue that. It may be in the spiritual realm. It may be here in the material realm, continuing on the mission, whatever. That's all decided by the Supreme Lord, And whatever it is, you're happy with that. You're ready for that. Yes, let's go.
It reminds me of a quote by Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. He said that spiritual life may be difficult, but material life is impossible.
Yeah, that's right. That's a wonderful quote. Yeah, spiritual life, material life is difficult, but well, you said it. Spiritual life may be difficult, but material life is impossible. And that's right. So it's a good life.
Did you ever take a day off?
In the sense that you're speaking, no. Well, why? Why take a day off? Day off from what? Doing what you're doing? Day off from your life? So, some days I may not be, well, I don't know. Some days I'm always active. So I don't see that as a day off. I mean, like we go on our mountain hikes. Well, in one sense, that's a day off. I don't do one of the programs we normally do, but it's still a day on. We're out there in nature. We're appreciating, the Creator. We're chanting in our little, kirtans in the mountains. We come back and feel very energized and do an evening program. And so that's a day off, but it's Krishna. I mean, every day is a Krishna day. That's how it is. Yeah. Whereas if you're working a material job, you live for the days off when you don't have to go to work. Like the weekends are hallowed because you don't have to go to work. I can do what I want to do. So it means you're not really doing what you want to do, and the weekends give you an opportunity to do what you want to do. But I don't, people who are doing what I'm doing, they don't have that problem.
Like they said, they give you coffee through the week to keep you active, and alcohol in the weekend to forget your misery.
I like that. I never heard that before, but it's so true, Yeah.
How do you go from drinking alcohol to forget your misery and coffee to keep you productive to where you are now?
Follow the process. But too much alcohol will bury you. Although, there's been innumerable people who are alcoholics who are, now, great devotees of the Lord, because they reached a point where they just had to change something. They knew that they were, maybe it was going to be physical death. They'd already died, you know, mentally and spiritually. They were dead. And that spark of life is eternal. It's always there. And sometimes it, like in a material situation, you're faced with imminent death and you fight to not die, because that survival instinct is based on the soul is eternal. It doesn't die. And that comes forth. So maybe the person's, on that level from alcoholism of death, like I say, physically, mentally, spiritually, he's already dead. But that spark of life is still in there, and it flames up, and he's still that survivor, and he still wants to live. And so, again, the Lord in the heart knows that, and he helps that person. He's at the lowest point, and he gives up, and he says, God, please help me, whether he says it mentally or verbally, or he just says it in his heart. It's still the same. God knows. God, please help me. And so God, immediately comes into the story and begins to help this person because he wants to be helped. And so he comes, in contact with something. It could be some teaching, some person, some situation, however it is, and it kind of just, starts the recovery process, and, physical recovery is very difficult. Mental recovery is most of the time very difficult as well, but it's possible with the Lord's help to rise up, and then you kind of come back to zero, so to speak, out of all the negative, and then you start moving into the positive, the plus category, and following the process, and having that association and that love and that care from the spiritual master and the Lord and other people, and it brings you back to who you really are eventually. It can happen like that. That's best case scenario, but a lot of people, it's not so fortunate. They just, they're too far gone in this lifetime. They're too addicted physically or whatever. I mean, these things are very, very difficult to overcome. But it can be done, and it has been done innumerable times with the Lord's help.
I guess many people feel like an attractive state should be at, but it's so far, and I'm so far away. I mean, I feel that as well, at least,
We're all far away from, well, no matter where we are, we're far away. You see, because, it's so much out there that no matter what we've touched or tasted, we're all far, far away from what's available. And the person on the highest level of pure love feels far away too, because love is unlimited. See, there's two conditions of love for God. It's called love in union, where you feel you're with God, you feel his presence, you're feeling secure, protected, enlivened, and serving him, and so on. See, but then there's love in separation, where you feel like, God has left you. And so that is even a higher stage, because now you're longing for the one that you love, who is now, it seems, has left you. And so your heart is filled with longing, a deep longing that, we have no experience of in this world. And that is an even higher taste. See, because in the spiritual realm, there's no such thing as pain. There's only pleasure. So pleasure is pleasure and pain is pleasure. So this separation, love and separation, feels like such pain in the heart, separated from the one that you love unconditionally, but at the same time, it's the greatest pleasure. See, which is, seems like a contradiction to our materially conditioned experience and mind. But yeah, so the highest lovers of God, feel that separation, But then it changes. It's not always, that's not a constant. And then the Lord appears again, and there's love in union, and then there's separation, and there's love in separation. And it's just a ever increasing realm of ananda, it's called, or spiritual bliss, Too much for the material mind to even comprehend at all, but a reality. So one step at a time, That's all. Never give up. Never give up. That we have to pray for. Please allow me to never give up. Give me the strength to continue on my journey to you. See? That's a valid prayer.
I think, and I am there, I think. That's, do you, yeah, do you have anything else you want to share or say, Balakhilya? Just
never give up. That's the real the real ticket, because that determination, and that will come with enthusiasm and determination. So lust, anger, and greed are the enemies of mankind. So if we want to be successful, we have to know they're the enemies, not fall into their trap. And also, do not commit offenses, criticism, judgment of God or his devotees. Do not. This is absolute suicide, spiritual suicide. Do not criticize and judge and blaspheme God's devotees or God himself. See? And yeah, you'll be all right. Okay, yeah, our time is up. Thank you. It went by very quickly.
thank you very, very much, Balakhilya. I think I'm speaking for everyone who is listening, that we ate so much this gift that you're sharing. And
yeah, well, it's not my gift. I'm just the mailman. I'm just delivering the package. So, yeah. So thank you. It's always a pleasure meeting with you guys up there in the north. And yeah, I know you've got a good group, and you're fortunate to be able to have that family, so to speak, that's on that. So yeah, count your blessings, as they say. Don't let conflict and anger and anything spoil your life. Forget that. That's for no value. It's only, the love, the care, the mercy that supports and nourishes and purifies. Bring the holy names into every situation, and you'll be fine. Okay, so next week, I guess we'll meet again. But anyway, I got to run. Thank you so much, Ruben, Haribo, to everyone there. And we'll be back.
for sure. Thank you very much. And thanks.
Namaste, Haribo, Haribo.
Haribo.